I want to talk a little bit about streamlining tech transfer, especially as it applies to moving to a CDMO or commercial facility. So, Todd, talk us through a little bit about how do R&D, process development, and manufacturing, how those teams collaborate early to ensure that that's a smooth tech transfer, again, to that CDMO facility if necessary, if you're outsourcing.
Yeah. So the first part of that is more of an internal component, working with R&D. So what I like to do is engage R&D early as the company agrees to move an asset forward to clinical manufacture. And so oftentimes you're going to have new genetic elements, maybe even completely new technologies. On the process side, the field may evolve, as we discussed in relationship to understanding how to mature the cells into a phenotype that the company believes is going to give you the best drug product. So putting all those pieces together, engage with research early so that they're kind of on the same page in regards to understanding the scalability of these. Research will often, in my experience, work at extremely small scale so they can screen many constructs and media and permutations. As we move, I'm a big proponent of scale down model that reflects your at scale process the best that you can. There's more to talk about on that and the challenges, but using your scale down model as the process emerges from research into process development and demonstrating you think that will be a robust GMP process early. If there's some stumbling blocks, fix those if you can, as quickly as possible, working with research. I think going from now into a full process development paradigm, as you're developing your process, and I like to use kind of a QBD, DOE, partial factorial kind of approach to process development, even at first in human or phase 1A process development. So that's going to mean your process understanding is going to get deep. And so as that understanding goes, and I recommend as you start locking parameters with your small scale studies and test those along the development arc at scale to make sure they translate. So along that arc, also start working with MSAT and building out your process description, the documentation that you'll transfer to your CDMO eventually with, and this really vet out, have we answered all the questions that we think are important for a successful tech transfer? And then when we move into the CDMO space, there's a lot of elements, I think, to achieve success. I touched on one earlier, is sit with the CDMO, and after you've done your gap assessment, and you really understand the facility you're going into, carefully articulate your process as it was run in the sponsor's PD facility, and really understand that it will be executed exactly the same on the floor at your CDMO. And I can't emphasize enough, small little details can ruin a whole lot. So the attention to detail is critical here. There's also a partnership part along that arc in that I recommend having deep dives with the manufacturing staff at the CDMO on your process. I think it builds a deep understanding of the process, but I think a little ownership as well, or hopefully a lot of ownership and excitement around the process and the potential of it. And then finally, when you're getting on to execution of the lot, of course, have some person in plant, and to the degree the CDMO will allow, engage with the process. I think the sponsor is going to know the process better than anybody, and where it might stumble a little bit, or the challenging unit ops that are new to the facility. Pay especially close attention there, and have a plan to, attack challenges that might come, so that you can hopefully save a lot real time, instead of addressing it as a deviation in a kappa. So I think that's the arc.
Ray, before we had another question come in that I want to get to, but before we do get to that question, I wanted to give you the opportunity to comment if you'd like.
So I think one of the more important things when you're looking at making sure that your tech transfer goes smoothly, I'd like to echo what Todd said, is that it is really about building a long-term collaboration with your CDMO. And when you're looking at autologous cell therapies, it is of utmost importance because the amount of flexibility and changes that occur and differences from patient to patient are relatively vast, that without that relationship and that collaboration and that strategic alignment, things will fall apart pretty quickly. I think, when you're looking at a much more traditional, say small molecule, you can treat CDMOs somewhat like a black box. You order, it's a commodity. But I think when it comes to cell therapy, especially autologous, you need to treat them truly like a partner, like they're part of your team that just works somewhere else.
Absolutely. Partnership is a key component to the CDMO, cell and gene therapy company success. I want to address this question quickly before we move on to perhaps any last minute advice you have for the cell and gene therapy companies listening. So can you comment on what are the next gen CAR T? What do you think that the next gen, and what are the next gen in terms of safety, toxicity, and or efficacy, including on target or off target, or cost cutting and process robustness? So perhaps just what's next gen, what's coming down the pike for CAR T?
So, I think it's all of the above, right? I think next gen from what we're looking at is everything. We want to see better safety profiles, better toxicity profiles, improved efficacy, as well as lower costs. That's a kind of a hand-wavy answer, but the industry wants to see it all. If I'm going to plug my own company, what we're looking at is improved efficacy and safety on our product is what we are hypothesizing of what will happen. And then, of course, my job is to make sure that the process is robust and we're cutting costs. But I think because cell therapy is in such an early phase of where it is from a therapeutic modality, I think all options are open. We can increase the safety and increase the efficacy at the same time. Now, when you're talking about on target or off target, I assume you mean safety or toxicity. Again, I think there's opportunities everywhere. To name some of them, again, pitching my own company, there's different receptors for activation of the cells beyond the 4-1BB CD28 paradigm, as well as things like armoring CARs and different targets. There's a litany that we can't go, that I think that's probably a whole series of webinars beyond this, but as well as cost cutting, I think it's about process efficiencies, things like automated robotic manufacturing, faster turnaround for analytics. I think this sector is ripe for innovation in all aspects as we move forward, and as there's more signals and more efficacious and products that work, all of these will be improved because they all need to be improved.
Thanks, Ray. And Todd, I'd like to give you an opportunity. And by the way, pitch your company all day. That's great. Todd, I want to give you the opportunity to do the same and to answer Niranjan's question.
I'll do the shameless plug, for Allogene. We believe in allogeneic, and the key there is, access. I think the whole field, cell and gene therapy, is really trying to create, first and paramount, as Ray mentioned, is efficacy and safety. And without that, it's a non-starter. That said, I think there's been some successes, and we want to build on accessibility and cost. And so every patient in need can receive our really, efficacious therapeutics. So I think Yeah, I would echo in regards to, next gen modalities and armoring and cell signaling and, tumor infiltration. I think a fun future, discussion would be how can we develop processes that influence the cell? So there's a lot of focus, and it should be on, the genetic elements, the cell signaling domains, et cetera. But can we also use process to influence the cells to a phenotype that's successfully infiltrates and survives in a tumor microenvironment well? I'm especially intrigued in that. I think the tumor microenvironment is a challenge for the whole cell therapy space, and I think yet to be fully proved out. But that great patient unmet need can be delivered there. So I think that's one element we could focus on for sure.